Today's episode is sponsored by Mill Creek Entertainment. Mill Creek is the industry leader when it comes to value-priced DVD and Blu-ray features and compilations. They have one of the largest catalogs out there, ranging from kids programming, classic films and television, independent cinema, documentary, Latino cinema, and they even produce their own content in-house, which is pretty frickin' cool.
Mill Creek is a trusted partner with some of our favorite studios, including Sony Pictures, Walt Disney Entertainment, Warner Brothers, CBS Home Entertainment, and many more. They've got their hands in just about everything. And I gotta say, my favorite aspect of Mill Creek is how plentiful they are. It's rare that I've gone to a store and not seen their now ubiquitous logo on display. I'm sure you own at least one of their titles without even realizing it, and to make it even more strange, I was at Menards the other day and saw a whole selection of Mill Creek titles.
So, available at your local Menards for those of you in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Be sure to check out their new Hammer Horror box set, which I'm not sure whether or not that's at Menards or not, but they put it out. Their Rita Hayworth collection, many titles within the wildly popular Ultraman series, and the David Gordon Green comedy Your Highness. They're also well known for putting out great television series like Community, The Mindy Project, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and Eureka. God, I love Eureka. The goddamn Sci-Fi Channel can put together an addictively cheesy series, can't they?
Oh, they have a knack of having the lowest budgets possible, but they still make it addicting as hell. But speaking of addictingly cheesy, don't forget about Santa with muscles.
Oh my God, how could I forget? Yes, Mill Creek is also responsible for distributing that little Hulk Hogan Christmas classic.
So head to millcreekent.com and see what their collection has to offer. That's millcreekent.com. Mill Creek Ent. I guarantee you'll find something great.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, then why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The Shameless Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Shameless Picture Show. I am your host, Michael Byers, and today I'm joined by one of my oldest and best friends, Cait Dohmeier. Cait is a first-time guest here on the show, but she and I have been waxing poetic about our mutual love for the horror genre since we first met. Sometimes we approach it from an academic standpoint, other times from a place of gleeful bloodlust. Cait is currently pursuing her Master's of Library and Information Science and an MA in Youth Literature from Dominican University. On top of that, she also holds a BA in History and Religious Studies from Alverno College, as well as an MA in Catholic Theology and Ministry from the Catholic Theological Union, which makes her uniquely qualified to talk about today's film, The Omen. How are you doing today, Cait?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Work was whatever, but I'm just excited that I get to sit here and talk about The Omen and the religious side of this film, because it's a side of the world that I'm not super well versed in.
Well, and I was surprised when you had mentioned that you hadn't seen it, because I feel like I can't believe that we've gone like 15 years without having a conversation about it, to where I would realize that you didn't know what I was talking about.
More than likely, when we first met, I probably pretended like I saw it. There's a strong possibility that I was like, yeah, The Omen, it's great.
What else have you lied about?
It was probably The Omen and The Exorcist because I hadn't seen either of them when I met you.
Jesus.
Yeah, so your two favorite movies of all time, I had not seen.
I was going to say, no wonder we didn't date for too long. You couldn't hold
Exactly.
up.
Exactly. Like your
like 2 dates.
your three favorite movies from that time were The Exorcist, The Omen, and Black Snake Moan. I don't know why I remember that.
That is very good memory because that was such a specific and niche moment in my life. But yeah, that was those are my top three at the time. I still love Black Snake Moan. I love all the movies still, but that's one. Yeah. Did you ever end up seeing Black Snake Moan?
I did. Yes, I think that was one of the ones I actually sought out shortly after I met you. And so when we met each other at Halloween Express, and we bonded over a mutual love for horror. And I feel like we bonded because we were both Rob Zombie and Eli Roth apologists, which we are still on an uphill battle with. Yeah,
and that was more in we had a lot of battles at that time because the Rob Zombie Halloweens were still coming out.
Yes,
so there was more conversation about it,
and I feel like
we're constantly on that battlefield.
I feel like the Rob Zombie hatred really started around that time. Like he had his detractors from the beginning, but he only made 2 movies up until Halloween. Yeah, but those other movies were so uniquely his. Mm-hmm. That I don't think it ruffled any feathers. Mm-hmm. Like, somebody's like, it's not my style. It's not my style. But when he touched Halloween, people got mad. Yeah.
And we had to deal with it.
And he didn't give a shit. He truly did.
No.
And I also love...
I appreciate that about him.
And we will eventually get to the topic of The Omen, but this is my show. I can talk about whatever the fuck I want. I always appreciated because I like his Halloween 2 better than even his Halloween 1, and I like both films. And part of the reason being Halloween 2, I love the mantra behind it because essentially they were going to make that movie with or without him.
Yeah.
Because his movie made so much money. So they're like, well, we're doing a sequel. And you can be involved or not. And his philosophy behind it was, well, if anyone's going to fuck up my movie, it's going to be me. And I appreciate how weird he got with it, because he got really weird. Yeah. He truly made Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah, and that was, I think, my favorite part about it, was that, there was no way, when we talk about The Omen later... Whenever we get around to that.
Eventually.
The original and the remake, and I've already shared some of my thoughts about the remake. So I'm not a big remake person. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like unless you're going to do something that adds to the conversation around it, I don't really see the point. In a lot of cases, which I know is not always a popular opinion, but so I feel like with the Rob Zombie one, he really made it his own. While remaining true, it was both love letter and his own interpretation and artistic expression about it, and I really appreciated that. So I actually enjoyed his remakes.
Yeah, I did too, and I was actually just texting your Spawn about that last night because
Conrad's got a lot of opinions.
He does, and that's one thing I love about him, because I get the thinking about the film industry as a business. I get the financial side behind a remake. It's something known that people have heard of, and newer audiences who don't necessarily want to watch a quote unquote old movie. You can update the scares to work better with modern sensibilities, and you can track the old I get it. I get it.
And I get it. I can understand that it can be sort of that proving ground or safety ground or whatever. You want to make a weird movie, fine. Let's see what you do with something that I know is going to make money.
Yeah.
And then we'll see, we can go from there.
And
I get it in that regard,
but what I think they're doing wrong is, one, they're spending way too much fucking money on a lot of these. And then, honestly, what they should be doing, say something like Friday the 13th, which is something that is locked up in a rights hell right now because of a feud between rights feud between the screenwriter and the original director. But like that's a perfect franchise where you give that to some up and coming new horror director and be like, go out and just make something, keep it under 5 or 10 million, and we'll put that shit out in theaters. But like me and Amanda were just talking because like we were always to an extent kind of remake apologists, not necessarily that we like them, but we got them and. Occasionally you would get a filmmaker who has something to say or has a unique take on it, and it can be refreshing. It's not the case with all of them, but what have you. But we were just talking the other day. We went to go see some movie, and I feel like we went to go see Princess Mononoke, and every movie they showed beforehand was just a remake, a live-action remake of something else. Like it was like the Lilo and Stitch live-action remake, and I think another one, and it's like, and especially because the Lilo and Stitch one, if you watch that, and if you've seen Lilo and Stitch, they are hitting every single story beat, and a lot of times with the same exact framing that they already did in like what 98, whenever that movie came out,
something like that. Yeah,
and
I remember seeing it in theaters, so it had to be around there.
It's crazy the way it's going. So
yeah. See, and I have these conversations because, one of the classes that I'm in is on the history of folk and fairy tales. So we talk about retellings a lot.
Yeah.
So nobody like owns that story necessarily. And you can retell a lot, but it's like, if I'm going to do a remake or looking at it as a retelling, it's like, I want a little bit of your own personality, or is coming from a different angle. I don't know. I don't want a beat for beat. Mm-hmm. But that's me.
No, and I'm the same way, and I also do feel bad for some filmmakers who have made successful remakes. A filmmaker I really enjoy the films of, David Lowery. He did he works. He has a good working relationship with Disney because he did a remake of Peach Dragon, which what a weird movie to make a remake of.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
His version is great. Like I truly think it's a great film. And then he did a really weird one, but I still like it, of Peter Pan. But then he makes weird little indie films for himself. Like he did The Green Knight. Like the guy who did The Green Knight doing movies for Disney is just really funny to me. But I
never saw Green Knight either.
I think you'd like it. But
you keep telling me that.
It's a very uniquely him remake. But you fall into this, and this is what I was texting your son about last night, where if you have it too similar to the original, fans will fight back and be like, well, why does this exist? And if you change it too much, then they're like, well, it's nothing like the original. So,
right.
But I'd rather a swing. I'd rather have a wild swing.
I'd rather you dance along the lines of, what the fuck is this story? Like, I thought this was something else. I'd rather dance along those lines than like, this is the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the entire audience got to listen to a little bit of what pretty much every time we hang out, what our conversations are like.
Yeah. This is odd because this is the first time we've had to like plan and schedule a conversation about a movie. Normally it takes place at like midnight, angrily like texting and sending voice notes of like, can you believe this?
Yeah.
And this was so stupid, or I loved this, or whatever. But normally it's just,
or just
we've never had to set time out of our lives.
Yeah, or we're just like
conversation.
I'm live texting you as I'm watching something, and just stirring specific story beats.
I'm really guilty of well, you know this obviously, but of making my husband pause it so that I can take a picture of the shot and be like, look at this. I like this.
I've done that as well. I've done that so much. I usually just keep them for myself, but I'm like, ooh, pretty shot.
No, if I take a picture of them, I usually end up sending them to you with some sort of commentary.
I'm not complaining.
No, well, you haven't yet, so
yeah, exactly.
That's why I keep doing it.
Exactly. So we like I said, just a little bit before we get on to The Omen. Obviously, I wanted you on for this episode because not only is it a movie you love, but you have a lot of experience studying not only religious studies, but then specifically Catholicism. And the last thing I wanted to ask you before we get onto The Omen was, Because you liked both The Omen and The Exorcist far before you were studying religion, correct?
Yeah. Because I got into horror. So going back a little bit, like I was raised Catholic in the way that most Catholics in America are raised, where we just sort of went to CCD and we got our sacraments and like, then like we didn't really care. We weren't like very active or devout. I'd say probably like culturally Catholic.
Probably the same way for my family too. Like I got all my milestones. I had first communion, first confession, and all that stuff. But
did you get confirmed?
Yes, actually.
Yeah. So you are technically we are fully responsible for our own selves.
Yeah,
as in our religious lives that way. And we see it so much as like a graduation from CCD these days, which is not what its original intention was, but yeah, so I always had the Catholicism around, but it wasn't really that involved in it. But I still loved when it would show up in my movies, and being able to like recognize things. And so I was probably about the same time that I was getting confirmed or getting prepared to be confirmed was when I started actually like showing more interest in horror movies. And my mom's boyfriend was like, "Oh, we started with vampire movies." He was like, "Oh, you like vampires?"
That makes sense.
I love vampire movies. Like we'll watch some together. Cause he was like, I was young and my mom was concerned about like, what am I actually going to be seeing? Like my mom was pretty loosey-goosey with things I read, things I watched. Like she trusted my judgment, but she was also like, this is not an area that she's familiar with. So if I say, "Oh, I'm going to watch this movie," she's like, "I don't know what's in that."
Yeah, so she can't really police it because she's not familiar with it.
Right. And she didn't want to police it, but she wanted to be aware. So her boyfriend was like, "Well, I'll watch them with her and kind of show her the classics and the landscape and stuff." And we started with vampires, and then we worked kind of out from there. And I think vampires also bring in such religious imagery.
Yeah.
So when that was something that I was drawn to, then from there is moving to like, well, then let's check out some possession movies. Let's check out some like things like that. And we went from there. And so that became, I attended movie night with him far more religiously than I ever did my actual like religious formation. And it became, it's like metal and horror were my religion for most of my life, even, as a small child. Cause my mom's a big metalhead, and her boyfriend was a big horror fan, metalhead. And so we were just always had that imagery around too, because they take from that.
Oh yeah.
Both of those subcultures like take from religious imagery. So those were always just the things that I was drawn to. And so I saw those movies, when I was probably in like middle school. Yeah, I don't know.
And for those listening who don't know Cait, because why would you? To give you a frame of...
I'm nobody. I'm just here.
Hey, you're my friend, and I think you are a wealth of knowledge. To give you guys a frame of reference, when I met her, you were a full-blown paganist. What was that term again?
So I was involved in Asa True, which is the Norse pantheon, Norse and Germanic, but not the weird kind.
But so like that was the frame of reference when we first met. But I knew you had a fascination with obviously religions in general term.
That was really but like when I did my religious studies, it was like comparative religion.
But I specifically remember because I was on the phone with you when we had a conversation, you're like, I think I might be Catholic. And it was like, we had like a 3-hour conversation about it.
Yeah, because so then I did come back to practicing in the church for a while, and I feel like every American Catholic, unless you're like really far into it, into like weird spheres, we all have this weird, you can never fully leave, like, because it is so cultural.
Yeah.
And even if you don't fully believe, or you might believe in the core basics of it, but not want to practice, which is, full disclosure, like where I'm at.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just, so sometimes in your life when you just want to, like, it ebbs and flows, where you get a little closer and then you leave again, and it's an ongoing dance of a lot of Catholics in America, and probably around the world, but I don't know as much about that. It's part of the culture.
But it is kind of interesting, your history with it, where horror...
I've practiced a lot of religions. I've dabbled in a lot of things.
Yeah, you definitely have. And it's interesting to me how your love for horror, and as you said, metal, kind of led to an extended fascination with that iconography for you want to delve deeper. So it's kind of interesting how your path to studying faith and religion it was in your life, but it really kickstarted because of horror. And I just think that's a really fascinating.
Mainly because I'll tell you, a lot of bands and movies don't use the imagery correctly. Or they don't use it as efficiently as I feel like they could. Like we talked about, like you see a lot of, like, oh, the upside down cross is, oh, it's supposed to be satanic, whatever. Within the church, that's actually, it's known as like the Petrine cross. We use it, like the Catholics use it as a sign of devotion. Because when one of the saints, one of the original apostles, was crucified, he was going to be, because that was just what the Romans did to everybody. Jesus wasn't special in that regard. So when he was going to be crucified, when Peter was, he didn't feel worthy of dying in the same way that Christ did. So he asked to be crucified upside down as a sign of, and so it was a sign of devotion. That's where that comes from.
It's also kind of metal imagery too. Like,
yeah.
Like being crucified upside down, that's pretty fucking cool.
I see. That's what I mean. It's like it's been co-opted with this one particular use, and I don't care.
Definitely.
Like, if a Satanist wants to use it as that, like, that's fine. But it's one of those things where I'm like, but that's cooler. Like the fact that, like, it's not because, oh, it's the opposite of Jesus. It's like he was crucified upside down, and crucifixion is already like such a horrific way to die. It's and even metal as hell.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was like, man, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, especially, to do it upside down is a whole nother level of fucked up, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have to get into the specifics of what happens during crucifixion to the body, but, like, unless you want to.
No,
one
that's
of my
fine.
favorite topics. I taught CCD for a couple of years.
You were probably the best teacher at this.
My kids loved me. I taught 6th and 7th graders. And that was my favorite thing to talk about, was what actually happens during crucifixion to the body. And they loved it. They loved learning that. And I think it gave, again, it's hard to look at a crucifix the same way, because, it's not just him that it happened to, that this is an actual thing. And, like, the actual, like, horrific details of what happens during a crucifixion, like, because the cause of death is typically, like, asphyxiation and cardiac arrest, because of the extreme, like, violence done to the body and the way that everything, we don't have to geek out about that right now, but it was one of my favorite things to teach. And I would teach it every Easter season.
It is also worth mentioning that she is wearing her T-shirt for the Museum of Historic Torture Devices as she
yes,
talks
I
about
am.
this.
It's Holy Week this week for Catholics and
I
other
didn't
Christians.
even put
I'm
that
sure
together when we scheduled this episode.
No, I was aware.
Of course you were.
Tomorrow is Maundy Thursday. It's the commemoration of the Last Supper. So tonight there's services all over for you would have like Tenebrae tonight.
And then here I am, like I had a client today on the phone be like, "Oh, I hope we have a great holiday." And I'm like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah, Easter."
Yeah. No, we are in the holiest week of the Catholic calendar, discussing the Omen. But yeah, so this is about the time. This is the week that I would talk about this with my students every year. I would talk about the details of crucifixion and how the Petrine cross is was not originally a satanic imagery.
Well, I think that's the best lead-in we could possibly go with to go on.
Yeah,
to the
well,
Omen.
especially because that's actually so for the Omen. That like is it one of the opening shots is Damien standing and his shadow moves into the Petrine cross. So that is part of like that imagery. It was part of what like made me go and look at what the symbolism was for this. So
perfect. Well, let's get into the Omen then. So we kind of buried the lead a little bit, but if you looked at the description, you know what this episode's about. But today, Cait and I are diving into Richard Donner's iconic horror film, The Omen. Robert Thorne is an American diplomat stationed in Italy with his wife. After the tragic miscarriage of their child, a mysterious priest offers Robert an alternative, a child with no known family whom they could raise as their own. The swap could be done discreetly, and his wife would be none the wiser. Robert agrees, and after being reassigned to England, he uproots his family and begins a new life with their adopted son, Damien. However, things are far from idyllic. A series of unsettling events and ominous warnings begins to unfold around them. As Robert digs deeper into the strange happenings, he uncovers something truly disturbing about his son and must confront the dark side of Catholicism he never knew existed. The Omen was a major commercial success when it was released in 1976, riding the wave of marketing strategies popularized by Jaws just a year earlier. The film earned over $4 million on its opening weekend, and ultimately became the sixth highest grossing film of 1976, behind All the President's Men, Silver Streak, King Kong, A Star is Born, and Rocky. And to give you guys a frame of reference, about $4 million its opening weekend is quite impressive because the film's budget was only $2.8 million. So making your budget back in the first weekend is pretty stellar. So while the critical reception at the time was mixed, the film has been recognized by institutions like the American Film Institute and the Chicago Film Critics Association as one of the scariest films ever made. And in an amusing turn of events, while the film was criticized by some within the Catholic Church, the California Graduate School of Theology in Glendale, California, presented the filmmakers with a special award in 1976 for daringly taking a step into a new type of dramatization of biblical doctrine. Additionally, Jerry Goldsmith won an Academy Award for Best Original Score. I just wanted to throw that in because I love Jerry Goldsmith. The film stars Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, David Warner, Billy Whitlaw, and Harvey Spencer Stevens as Damien Thorne. The film features a haunting score by Jerry Goldsmith, editing by Stuart Baird, cinematography by Gilbert Taylor, and a screenplay by David Seltzer, produced by Richard Donner and released in 1976. This is The Omen. And as an added bonus, we want to explore some additional entries in the Omen franchise. We'll also be touching on John Moore's 2006 remake of The Omen, as well as Arkasha Stevenson's 2024 prequel and reboot of the series, The First Omen.
For generations, the Thornes have been a family of tremendous wealth, position, and power. The perfect marriage of Ambassador Robert Thorne and his wife Catherine was fulfilled by the birth of their son, Damien. And then, when the child was 5 years old, something terrible happened. And then it happened again. Was it an accident? Was it murder? Was it a coincidence? Or was it an omen?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
20th Century Fox presents a film of psychological suspense about an occurrence of earth-shaking importance. Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, The Omen.
I was at the hospital, Mr. Thorne, the night your son was born. I saw its mother. I saw its mother.
I have fears. I have fears.
What kind of fears? Its mother, Mr. Thorne.
You saw my wife.
Its mother.
What is it you're trying to say?
His mother was a...
This is not a human child. Make no mistake.
There are those who will die for him. There are those who will kill for him. Who is he? What does he want? Where did he come from? And can he be stopped? Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, The Omen. If this is the truth, where does it end?
So, The Omen was on my shame list, as we discussed in our long opening. It's just one of those movies that I'm surprised I haven't seen as well, but it's also a movie that is so deeply rooted in popular culture that I feel
like you don't have to see it sometimes to know.
Yeah, and it's
probably how you glided by our conversations. I feel like it's probably the same with The Exorcist at this point.
Yeah, because I had seen that when I watched The Omen, it almost felt like I had seen it because I'd seen so many of those moments, so many of those classic scenes. Mm-hmm. That it felt like seeing. It's like Jaws, for example. First time you see it, it feels like you've seen it because it's just so within the culture. But when did you first see The Omen?
Like I said, probably sometime in middle school. I think probably the summer between junior high and high school. So. It's hard because it's been it's been a while. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure it's at least around there, give or take.
So was this a situation of this was a movie you were tracking down? Was it shown to you? How did it come to be? Because like we said, sometimes these movies you don't even remember how you've seen them; they just are around us.
I watched it with my mom's boyfriend. Okay. His name was Gordon. Mm-hmm. And we like I said, we called them vampire nights. Mm-hmm. And it was every Friday night we watched a different movie. And
this was part of that. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He made dinner and we watched a movie, and we were religious about it. So it was just one of those because he remembered seeing it like when it came out. Same with The Exorcist. And he was like, these are the two scariest movies I've ever seen in my life. And then I remember watching them and being like, really? Like, these are it? Like, they're scary.
But the scariest, that's like a bold claim.
Right, yeah. It's like, especially because, like, we were watching movies at that point where I was like, am I a baby then? Like, that these were scary? And, like, this is, like, am I desensitized at this point? Like, I don't know what, and I feel like it's just, like, that bit of what was absolutely terrifying in the 70s. Well, it's not gonna. It's like watching Star Wars. Like, the big reveal of Vader being his father is like, it was shocking at the time. Mm-hmm. Nobody saw it coming, and now it's like, well, like everybody knows.
It's a trope now at this point. Yeah. And I've often wondered that because like something like The Exorcist is still considered by many people, especially of, a generation two before us, as the scariest movie ever made. And I'm wondering for The Exorcist and The Omen, how much of that came from the fact that far more people were, I'm trying to be careful with my wording here because I don't want to make a generalization, but I feel like religion in families was far more commonplace. It was,
I think so too, and I feel like those were situations that were more off limits.
Yeah.
At the time, and these are both movies that deal with religion and children.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a child that's born evil, and a child who is possessed by evil. That I think it's just at that time it wasn't done. In the same way. And I don't want to generalize because I'm sure when, like, somebody is going to be like, well, what about these 18 different movies? But
I feel like someone's religious background definitely plays a factor into whether or not this movie was frightening to them. And it's not necessarily to say that they need to be a religious person, but even something like we were talking about before at the beginning of the show, how both of us grew up with religion, and to some extent in our lives as children. We weren't necessarily religious families, but it was there. We went through all the same steps. And I'm wondering if something like The Exorcist or The Omen would have affected people in the 70s who didn't have any faith. Well,
that's Gordon. My mom's boyfriend was not raised religious.
Oh, really? Okay, that is interesting then.
He was not Catholic. He converted at some point for his first wife, but was like didn't really care. But he was not raised.
Interesting.
Religious. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that has maybe coming from that angle as well is when you're presented with these things. And that was something I always joked that The Exorcist kept me Catholic. Because that was the only thing that overcame and the evil in the movie. And so I don't know. I think that's such a personal thing as well, whether it's the 70s or not. Like, everybody was having discussions about religion at that time. And again, that's a generalization, but but for the Catholic Church, we had just gone through Vatican II. I mean, not even 10 years, maybe, and by the time it was finalized, probably about like 10 years prior to The Omen coming out. And that might not mean anything to you these days, but at that time, like, everything was shaken up. So like everything was sort of in flux in the Catholic Church at that time. And then you've got these two movies that come out that are going to shake that too. Like, they're entering into that conversation, which is context that, like, we today wouldn't have, because so much was changing back at that particular moment. That's when we went from priests in cassocks all the time. You wouldn't see, your priest leaving, going about the town in jeans. But in the 70s, you started to. And you had the Latin Mass at that time. That was just the Mass up until Vatican II. So that was everything done in Latin, the priest facing away from the
interesting.
People. Yeah, they faced the altar.
I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. It's one of my biggest complaints, because people will do movies and feature Catholicism, and they'll set it prior to Vatican II. And none of those changes, like, happened overnight either. So that's where the 70s kind of comes in, because then there was a lot that was left up to interpretation, rightfully or wrongfully. Priests and bishops and their conferences around the world started to either be like, okay, that's great, but we're going to stick with this that's closer to the document. And then places, particularly in America, we got wild with it. And that's where you hear of, like, guitar masses and clown masses. And literally, like, yes, like priests dressing up like clowns.
Wild.
And, like, doing things and, like, bringing in, like, I had a professor during my first master's who talked about, he was a priest at that time. And he was like, I remember for the homily that one time, he's like, and I'm so embarrassed to remember this. Like, I brought out the latest Beatles album and played like 3 songs and just had us all sit around the altar, like sit around like before in the space like right in front of the altar, and like we all held hands and listened to the Beatles, and I was like, this is the Holy Spirit moving. And he's like, I'm so embarrassed by it now, but like so wild things were happening in the 70s in the Catholic Church.
That is like Kevin Smith, Buddy Christ energy right there.
It is. And that's like the felt banners that, oh God, I personally hate the felt banners, but like, that's when because they changed how you had to dress the church. Like in different interpretations were being made. And so in the middle of that, you've got these two movies that come out, that are talking about changing things. I know we're not talking about The Exorcist today.
No, but this is important
but I feel like
context.
At this juncture in like time and talking about the context in which the Omen came out, like you have to include The Exorcist in that conversation.
Absolutely. It's without The Exorcist, there would be no Omen.
Yeah, and like I said, they tell these two sides of what could go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That you've got the child who is the Antichrist and the child who is fine, and is a normal child and then becomes possessed. And in that movie you've got, because again, 70s, so you have a lot of change happening in the Catholic Church and also to the American family, because you have people leaving the church, people getting different ideas about the church, and you've got divorce happening, and that plays a big role in The Exorcist.
Yeah.
The Captain Howdy acts up whenever her father is not around. Like, and of course he's not around through the whole movie, but when he misses her calls or doesn't call on her birthday, when her mother has to go to work, spend long times at work, all of these things that would have been happening in the 70s to the American family, that's when Captain Howdy acts up, and that's when she gets deeper into the possession. So when you put that in the context of the 70s and what's happening, and then you've got The Omen, where they go to church once in this movie.
Yeah,
and that's for the wedding.
Yeah, I was going to say, and they make it very apparent that this is not a
usual thing.
A usual thing, exactly.
Yeah,
like, he is a public figure. This is just something he has to do.
Right. This is a work event, essentially, for him.
And it's interesting. I was thinking about since we were talking about kind of the comparisons between The Exorcist and The Omen, or not comparing them, but talking about them side by side in a way. And it's I was just sitting here thinking about it too. They are both movies about faith, not just the religion, but the Exorcist obviously has the themes of faith and whether or not Father Karras is still a believer, and then it's his belief that ultimately helps overcome.
Yeah.
But then The Omen is also a film about belief in a completely different way, because one thing that I think Richard Donner does very well in this movie, and apparently this was something he fought for throughout the movie, because he really wanted to leave it open to interpretation about whether or not Damien was actually the Antichrist, or if it just happens to be a bunch of shit around them and they put blame on the child. And I think he does a really interesting job to kind of skirt that through a lot of the film. And
because I never picked up on that at all.
Because like even me and Amanda were talking about, it's like there's many times throughout this film where you could argue that, is this related to Damien or is this just happenstance? And Gregory Peck's character he kind of puts his faith in this thing, whether or not he is struggling to whether or not he believes in it. And in the end, he puts enough faith in it that he's like, well, I'm going to murder this child, essentially.
Well, and when you consider that they're obviously not a religious family.
Yeah.
That he's putting his faith in the Catholic Church real hard for someone who's not done that before in his life, that we are privy to. because he has to listen to this random priest off the street who just like comes in and starts rambling.
And the last time you listened to a random priest, he ended up with the Antichrist.
Yeah, well, but that's exactly it. Like, he has to trust.
Yeah.
Everybody, like, really, the one priest we see him interacting with prior to all of the weird things happening is one who lied to him. If you go along with the fact that like Damien is the Antichrist.
Yeah. Which I think ultimately the movie that's what the movie's saying, but it is.
Yeah. So he has to believe this guy that this happened, that this isn't his child, which is why I think the cemetery scene is so important. Mm-hmm. That frees up a lot for him to believe, because not only is it like a confirmation that like something happened in that hospital and Father Brennan was telling the truth about that, but then it's like he's got to believe that the church has it right, that the evil secret church exists and also is like successful at breeding the Antichrist, mm-hmm. and then has to kill a child. The child that he's raised. Yeah,
the child who's done very little sinister throughout this movie is not, like, other than him lashing out when they're going to the church, he is just a kid who gives ominous looks and things happen around him.
We've all lashed out on our way to church. And you know, like...
Yeah. No one wants to wake up early on a Sunday and get out of bed. No.
And it's everybody else's belief. You're right, because Miss Baylock believes it.
Yeah.
Robert Thorne comes to believe it. This priest believes it. Just having to trust all of that, put faith in all of that is and it's a big ask, even for a believer.
Yeah, like it's one of those like it's like you said, even for a believer, it is a big ask, because for someone to come up to you and say this child is the Antichrist is just an insane notion. Like I said, even believers, it's one of those things like, yes, we believe that this is a concept that exists, but what are the odds of it actually happening?
Well, and that's the thing, like, as somebody who has studied the Catholic Church and has worked in Catholic churches, I think the hardest part is someone were to come to me and be like, yeah, there's this secret society within the church that's got this big plan, and they did this and it worked, and this kid, I'd be like, I don't know how you could get that many priests to actually organize something on their own without a parish council to do this for them, and then like have it work. That's not my experience with the Catholic Church. Like, the fact that you can pull this off, I don't believe it.
So I was wondering if I could pick your brain a little bit. So
sure.
Obviously you have far more experience with not only religion, but just Catholicism in general.
Yeah.
And I feel like the terms like Satan, Antichrist, things like that are thrown around so willy-nilly, especially in horror iconography. Yeah. Can you explain from a theological standpoint, what the Antichrist is and the thought process behind it?
So this is all based out of the book of Revelation. And so as in full disclosure, I am not super well versed in the Bible because we're Catholic. So people think that we're very biblical based, and we are. Everything that we do, everything that Catholics do, see, I still say we, even though I'm not actually like currently practicing. Everything that Catholics do is found in Scripture, but mm-hmm. we're not as bound to Scripture because we also have tradition, right? So we have Scripture and tradition with a capital T. So that's our doctrine and the cultural aspect of it, and like the rules that we follow. And when you think of more of like the fire and brimstone preaching and things like that, and being very biblical based and like being able to pull up Scripture at a moment's notice, that's more of a Protestant thing. That's more the denominations that are outside of the church are much more, that goes into the concept of sola scriptura, that there's faith in belief alone. You just have to believe, and that's how salvation works. And everything has to be very literal from the Bible. Catholics are not literal from the Bible. And we're not creationists. You can choose freely to believe that. I know I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I have to, before I get into this.
I don't think it's off topic at all.
Yeah, we're not creationists. We don't enforce that. You might have met Catholics who are creationists, but it's not a doctrine. It's not official doctrine. It's actually very scientific based. The Vatican has and has always had scientists on staff. Where it's not, when we say like, oh, well, it's in Book of Revelation, like we're not literalists about this. So the actual interpretation of the Book of Revelation is supposed to be it's already actually happened. It's based on Rome and the fall of Rome. But there's this concept of like the second coming of Christ, and that's obviously not happened yet. So there's mention in there that when in order to have Christ come again, and then you get the rapture, and you get the all those things that we hear about, is like the earth will be essentially started over after a great many conflicts, political and through warfare and all sorts of stuff like that. The Book of Revelation tells about like these signs that'll come, that the end of the world is going to come, and that Christ will come again and save all the true believers. Everybody goes right up to heaven. And his second coming will be in response to this antichrist. So it'll be everything that Christ is not will be in this figure. And this is being done, this antichrist is of the devil, of the, here to destroy, but they will fool you with the appearance of Christ. They will appear charismatic and holy and righteous, and they'll be, the guy that you want to get a beer with. And then all of a sudden, or in stages, whatever, they'll turn and they will bring about all of this evil, this world-ending warfare, famine, drought, illness, plague. And that's all they're doing. And only when that is essentially at its peak will Christ then return and save those who have been faithful. It's not a huge part of Catholics' lives, because we see it as sure, this can be prophetic. This will happen. Maybe this is something that could happen in the future, but it's also it's a historical book, not necessarily a prophetic one. It says oh, this will happen, but we track it along with the fall of Rome. My husband knows a lot more about that. My husband also has degrees in theology and ministry, but he studied the Bible more thoroughly. He's more of a Bible scholar. I studied the culture and tradition side of it. So together, we are the whole church. We joke about it all the time that he's the Word and I'm the Spirit. That's not the blasphemous statement, sort of because we're not, but that we represent these two sides. But we joke about that. So he would be able to give you all sorts of scriptural basis for where this belief comes from, and also why we don't believe it as a literal thing. But it's one of those things that you can grab onto and tell a story with. That's a little bit more exciting than saying, well, it's about the fall of Rome.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's
kind of creating a characterization for a concept.
Yeah. And so I know it's in Protestant denominations, it's a much bigger deal. In some, not all of them, but because the more literally you take the Bible, then the more seriously you're going to take the Book of Revelations. And there are some denominations that believe that we should be moving along the descent into warfare and all this, that we should be helping with this, because that's when Christ will come back, and that they want Christ to come back. And Catholics over here, we're like, that's not our jam. That's fine. And again, you can individually believe that this is an important part of your life, but as a whole, it's not something that the Catholic Church is super concerned about. We're not trying to bring it about, it's a lot of Catholics don't believe that it's really a thing. I'd say probably most at this point. We're not looking for the second coming. It sounds terrible. Nobody wants to do that. So we're not interested in that. And it's just not a huge part of our lives. But it is a huge part of other people's lives. So I think that's something where it's this common ground that you're going to, sure, this is a Catholic movie, and you can have Protestant denominations that are very anti-Catholic. That's a huge thing, actually, in many denominations. That it's a common ground that they can come together on, because we're here for the great, the story, the evil, the whatever, and you can come together on that. And I think that's why possession movies are so popular too. It's one area where we can come together, but I think it's more appealing for Catholics to look at possession movies, because we don't worry as much about the end of the world. So I think possession, even though it's not that's also not a huge concern for many Catholics, probably most Catholics around the world. We're not concerned about it actually happening. But it's one of those where it's I would believe in a heartbeat that someone is possessed more than I would believe that someone is the Antichrist. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense.
And I feel that's probably in the case for most Catholics. I would much more readily believe someone who says that they're possessed than someone who says that they're the Antichrist or is accused of being the Antichrist.
No, that makes complete sense. And the reason I ask is just, like I said, once again, come from a standpoint of where this is not a world in which I'm overly familiar with. Like I said, Antichrist and is a concept that's thrown around in horror and music and things like that, and I feel like it's used a lot of times interchangeably with the devil, and even though they are different things in their different things, they are used so interchangeably, and it became one of those things where, since a lot of things that I know about subcultures in the world come from watching movies, it's one of those things that movies don't usually have it right. Which leads me into something I wanted to also talk about, where obviously I'm sure your perspective on this film and these films, we can start bringing in things about the First Omen and the strange 2006 remake. And I'm sure your perspective on them has changed as you've grown as a human, and also just learned more. I was talking to Amanda before we started recording this. You are probably one of the most educated people I've had on this show in terms of number of degrees. But I think you might have said in one of our texts back and forth to each other, and please know, I'm not indicative of every single. There are people who are a lot more educated than me in theology, like my husband. But somebody out here is going to listen to this and be like, "She's wrong." Probably, all opinions stated on this show are that of the person stating them. We're not making generalities. It's two friends having a discussion, and we just happen to be recording it. But I feel, and quote me if I'm wrong, I feel like you might have said that the 2006 remake might have been more religiously sound, or was that the First Omen that you said that about?
No, okay, neither one of them is very religiously sound, to be completely honest.
Well, ultimately the point I want to make is I want to talk about the way that religion is presented in these three films. Yeah. Because now that we've watched three of them for this, we have a lot to compare it to.
Yeah. So it's more prevalent in the remake, and I'm not going to talk about the First Omen yet.
We're talking about the 2006 John Moore 2006
remake and the original 1976. Between those two, the church is more prevalent, I feel, in the remake.
I can see that.
You see them more, and they explain themselves more. Like, there's a whole opening scene in the remake where they have, like, the Catholic astrologers come in and brief the Pope that this is about to happen.
The slideshow scene.
Yes. Yeah. Like, can you imagine them, like, putting together their little
and I love that he was just flipping through them so fast.
I know.
Oh, small aside, I do just need to mention real quick, we are really amused that they absolutely established that this is in a world after 9/11, and I look to Amanda and be like,
yes.
I was like, do you think he's going to be able to sneak 7 knives onto an airplane?
Right.
It was a private jet, so.
Because he didn't have a lot, I mean, he had to, I guess he checked the bag.
Yeah.
But even then, like, what the fuck are you doing? But you see more of the church in the remake.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably because, again, going back to, like, we're much more secularized as a society now.
That was the word I was trying to come up with earlier. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't hear it 18 times in the First Omen when they kept talking about why this had to happen? Anyway, we'll get So, yeah, but so I feel like they had to explain more in the remake because we've moved away from this being a normal part of people's lives. Like, I feel like there can be a lot of shorthands in the original that you have to explain more now because you have a much more diverse audience that you were trying to appeal to, and also a less educated one and less catechized. Because just because you went to Catholic school for 12 years doesn't mean that you're catechized well. You don't know what you're talking about. This is just have to put that out there, that you can't hold up in a conversation with me about it just because you went to Catholic school.
I feel like you're drawing from something there.
Oh God. Yeah. And I feel like most people who make movies with Catholic imagery these days particularly is very like, it's fine. We don't need to consult any actual Catholics because, like, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. I know what I'm talking about. I'm like, no, you don't. Do you remember trigonometry? No. So I don't trust your assessment on theology either.
Oh, that was beautiful.
It's one of my biggest complaints. But yeah, so I feel like they just had to explain it more. And make it more obvious what they were talking about. But I feel like they did it in such a weird way because it was like this PowerPoint presentation, and the image of like these priests sitting around and like moving images into their PowerPoint so that they can like tell the Pope that the Antichrist is coming.
I know. I love the idea that they're sitting there Googling, like Google like 9/11 images, and then drag and drop, and
like
they had to get someone from the Vatican IT department on to help them at a certain point, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. And because this is one of the things, so I don't think people realize one of the biggest and like most advanced like observatories in the world is owned by the Catholic Church. We've always had them. And the church gets a reputation for being anti-science that I don't feel that they actually deserve. Because they have some of the most advanced scientists and astrologers and doctors, and that's where the riches of the Catholic Church go to, is study and research in a lot of cases. So that I thought I liked seeing their little setup. That like knowing that like they're very well funded at that observatory, and that then he had to sit and make that little presentation. It cracks me up to think about. Especially because all of the priests I know they had to hire somebody, and then what they had to explain, like I need 3 images of 9/11. I need 3 images of like sick people. It cracks me up. But so that was just something that I noticed and found it interesting, and I thought that was probably why. And when you get into the First Omen and how the Catholic Church is presented there, that drove me nuts.
Because I know when I was watching it, we were talking about how Immaculate came out around the same time, and it is kind of interesting that 2 movies with very similar plots. Just I love when that happens, when there's just 2 zeitgeist movies that come out at the same time. Yeah. And, you know, it's not chasing trends because they came out too close to each other for that to be a thing.
Right. These were in production at the same time.
Yeah. Right. And I think we're both in agreement that we both enjoyed Immaculate far more.
Yeah. I appreciate the First Omen simply because of the tie to the Omen. I appreciate it as a prequel, even though I have mixed feelings. I have a lot of feelings about it.
I have my biggest feeling is, did we need to see this story?
That's kind of, it's like, what are you going to do with it? And then at the end with the twin, I'm like, okay, are we going to actually do something with this or not? Like, but in terms of how the Catholic Church looked in that movie, my husband and I were sitting there and like, we're not sure for the majority of the movie why they were making the decisions that they were making. Like, you don't just bring over like random American novitiates. Like just because you become a nun, like does it like, or you join a convent or you join an order of sisters, does not mean that you become a nun immediately. Like there's several steps. Same with being a priest. There's every priest has a master's degree in divinity. So they and a lot of the sisters go forward with that as well. So there's a lot of preparation. This is a years-long process. They're not flying you over to Rome, like the seat of the church. Like that's just to like, because they like you. And so in that case, it was like, it made sense at the end that like, she's been chosen. She was bred for this. Like, and then they, you know, that they needed her for that reason. And by the time we got to the end, we were like, okay, that's why none of this made sense. The fact that they gave them like an apartment, like just 2 sisters, just 2 nuns, like not even full nuns, 2 novitiates.
Yeah.
Like, and, they have not taken the veil yet. Like they're not full members of this order yet. And they've just got their own apartment, just the 2 of them.
Just
in that
chilling.
apartment that could fit like 10 people.
Going out to the disco and partying.
Yeah, I was like, no, they keep you pretty locked down for the first year, for sure. And then you're still living like in community. That's a part of being in a religious order, is that you are in community. So they live together. Even so, like when I was at the Catholic Theological Union, that's the primary function of that institution is as a seminary. So training priests. So that was where I was in class with a bunch of future priests that had not, most of them had not taken their final vows where they actually become ordained and become priests, because that's what they were there for. They were getting their masters in divinity. And so they all lived in an apartment together. They lived like all of the orders. They had either houses where they all lived together, dorm style, or in apartments. And this would have been still the case in 1976. Like they would not have been into two apartments by themselves. And then like, because you go to mass every morning, like there's a prayer routine to being a nun or a priest. And you can't do that if you are living in an apartment where you are unsupervised and have access to everything and you can sleep in and you have to get back. Like, no, there's prayer services. Mm-hmm. Typically they start very early in the morning if you're living in a community. And so that's immediately we were like, what the fuck is this? Why? What do you mean they've put her in this apartment and like with one other person?
It was a pretty spacious apartment too.
It was.
Like I don't imagine you can find many apartments that big in Italy.
No, like that could have fit an entire family. Mm-hmm. And if it was an accurate, and they explain that like they don't have as many sisters coming in. So like Luz is the only one who's taking the veil that in that time in her like class or whatever. So like you can explain it of like, oh, well, that's where they put the novitiates. That's where they put them. And then they get to come and live at the orphanage. But like, why? And then why would you pay for that apartment? we had so many questions. And it was just like, and then they're not there for church. They're not there for the liturgy of the hours. They're not there for the morning rosary. They're not there. You'd never see them, the rest of the nuns pray. And it makes sense by the end because then you're like, oh yeah, because they're all these weirdos. They're all part of this secret church. But then again, they're supposed to still be believers.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be trying to combat secularism by bringing the Antichrist.
Which would effectively kickstart the second coming of Christ.
Right.
Okay.
So like these are people like they believe, they are believers. So they would be at mass. They would be praying. They would be like not just doing weird rituals in the basement. Like there would be evidence of their prayer life in other parts of the community life. And we were like, this doesn't make sense. Even knowing what we knew at the end about them being this very specific, like multi-generational breeding program. It was like, this still doesn't make sense with what they're saying. So yeah, I don't know. At least I feel like, at least with the original, the religious aspect of it, it wasn't as prevalent as you would imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely there, but it's not.
It's not. If I tell you that it's a movie about like the church and the Antichrist, you would imagine, or just the Antichrist, you would imagine that church would, like, the religious imagery would be larger. But so I feel like when it did come up, it was handled with a little bit more respect than it was in like the First Omen, or more understanding. They didn't use a Catholic church at the end when they go to kill Damien. When Robert goes to kill Damien, that's not a Catholic church. It's an Anglican church. But also at the time in 1976, or whenever it was actually filmed, the church a Catholic church probably didn't let them use the building, which is fair. Because we shouldn't, like, you're not supposed to film things inside of a Catholic church, because we have the body and blood of Christ kept in the tabernacle. And so it would be disrespectful to film a movie like this in front of the tabernacle. And just like, I know they weren't thrilled about this movie when it came out. You still have some that are angry about it now. Yeah. I don't know.
But ultimately, like, the thing that I So going back to the original Omen, because the First Omen is such an unfortunate title for that movie, because I do that all the time.
It's made it really difficult. When we were planning this and we were talking about this, we had to use. We're talking about them all in social. It was like a "Who's on first" conversation.
Pretty much. Yeah. And it's. I don't want this to come off like in a I think old movies are better type of deal, because that's not necessarily.
But
in this case, it was. There was. I believed Gregory Peck and Lee Remick as a couple. That it was it was very short, but when they first moved to England and we had their kind of like we are a loving family montage. Like I just kept thinking, it's like, oh, they seem like they're good parents. They seem like they really care.
That made it look like they actually liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like when Father Brennan first comes into Robert Thorne's office. The thing I will give about the First Omen is the actor who played Father Brennan looks like a younger version of the Father Brennan. Like they did good on that cast.
I could see that.
But when he first comes in, like the thing that always stands out to me, and I don't know if it's just because I love them as a couple, is his desk is full of pictures of her.
Yeah.
With and without Damien. And it's like the care that was taken just on the set design to make sure that those pictures were there.
It tells a story.
And yeah.
Yeah. And I completely agree. And like the 2006 remake, We're a Happy Family montage. I just didn't believe at any point Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber were together. One thing I will give Liev Schreiber though, in defense. So we talked about how the 2006 remake just kind of like smooths out some of the logic gaps a little bit, and
that is something I will give that. I don't have all negative things to say about either the First Omen or the remake.
The two that stand out the most to me is when in the original film, Mrs. Baylock being like, oh, the agency read about the death of your nanny in the newspaper and they sent me. Like it makes way more sense that it was just a small little thing, but they've been auditioning nannies. So when she shows up, it seems less weird. But one thing I will give Liev Schreiber versus Gregory Peck, because I think Gregory Peck is so fantastic in The Omen, I don't have much negative to say about him. However, when the priest comes to see Gregory Peck for the first time, and he goes, and he's pretty much saying, like, I know about your son. I know what happened in Rome. The way that Gregory Peck plays that scene, me and Amanda were both like, does he truly not remember, or is he playing coy? Because the way that Gregory Peck plays it, you almost feel like he was potentially brainwashed and doesn't remember it. But Liev Schreiber does something really interesting in his scene, in his version of it. And I really liked him in this scene. In his version of that scene, he was saying all the same things of like, I don't know what you're talking about. You need to leave. But he had this intense stare the entire time that just, it read like...
You didn't believe that he didn't know what he was
like,
talking
I
about.
know what you're talking about, but get the fuck out type of thing. It's like, I was like, oh, that is a really nice way to play that scene differently. That great, because I feel like he probably watched the way that Gregory Peck did it and be like, okay, how do I do this without just feeling like I'm retreading it? And I kind of feel bad for Liev Schreiber. Liev Schreiber is a good actor, but having to essentially do the same exact role that someone else did 30 years prior, who's a fucking icon. Like, nothing against Liev Schreiber, but he's not Gregory Peck.
No, and I feel like there are certain points in the movie where I am watching Liev Schreiber know that he's not Gregory Peck
and I feel
and get disheartened about it and not like pull off the scene simply because. Now, can I name it off the top of my head? No, it's just when I watched it, I was like, you are not Gregory Peck. You know you're not Gregory Peck. and you're feeling self-conscious about not nailing the scene because you are not Gregory Peck. And I just wish that you would just be like, but I'm Liev Schreiber, and just do it.
Yes, I kind of wish. Yeah, like I wish we had just gotten a Liev Schreiber performance, because he's got Gonzo range in that he can play the tough, brooding, traditionally good-looking, handsome type guy, but then in one of his early movies, this movie that he did called Day Trippers, he was the obnoxious boyfriend who's writing a novel that no one wants to read, and he won't stop talking about it. And he's just the doofy author boyfriend, and the fact that he can play both of those roles is phenomenal.
Well, so we've talked about when we watched the original, and then the how much we loved the cemetery scene.
Yes, the cemetery scene is amazing.
And so the cemetery scene in the remake, to me, is a letdown, just simply because like the original is so amazing.
Overproduced.
Yeah, but there's a moment like right before the dog jumps out, before you get that jump scare, where like I was wholeheartely heartbroken for Liev Schreiber because he was actually emotional, and like he was in that scene for those like couple minutes where I was like, this is just what I wanted from you this entire time. Like this. Like
yeah, and anytime that he shared a scene with both of our favorite part of that movie, anytime he shared a scene with Mia Farrow, they were great together. Him and Mia, like, nothing against Julia Stiles. I actually really like Julia Stiles.
I love Julia Stiles. She was one of my first crushes as a kid.
I don't blame you. And also, it is worth mentioning that this is the start of the Julia Stiles adopts a scary kid who turns out to not be what they assume subgenre, because she also did that in The Orphan 2. So I love that. It's weird that it happened twice for her. But I feel like Liev Schreiber and Mia Farrow have so much chemistry with each other, and Julia Stiles is there. And I know what, like, I don't care what anyone says. I fucking love 10 Things I Hate About You, and
absolutely.
And as good as Heath Ledger is in that movie, Julia Stiles is on another fucking wavelength in that movie. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that version of Julia Stiles, because when I was watching the Priest PowerPoint at the beginning, and I was just looking at the cast, like Liev Schreiber, awesome, Julia Stiles, awesome, Mia Farrow, awesome, and then they just kind of like pantomimed their way through it.
Yeah, I don't think Julia Stiles laughs at all through the entire movie,
not once,
and that's something. In the original, she was laughing all the time.
You mean,
at least at the start. Obviously the
Lee Remick's character? The wife in the original one, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
Just want to make sure people can follow. Yeah.
Yeah. She, at the start of the movie, like, she's laughing and giggling and joking a lot. Mm-hmm. And which makes her descent into doubt. And feeling crazy and feeling overwhelmed and trapped, like, it feels worse as a viewer to watch her go through this because you've seen her be fun at the start of the movie and in love with her husband, like her and Gregory Peck, like they were such a good couple together in this movie. Like they had believable chemistry.
They did,
and you were just missing that, like between what I felt like Liev Schreiber's like lack of confidence and Julia Stiles' seriousness. Like they just couldn't. And Liev Schreiber, I'll give him the credit that his character is also what they bring out more in the remake is that he has this connection to the president. He's the president's godson, which is true. There's connections for Robert Thorne in the original, but they really lean on the fact that he's the godson of the president, and that he feels like, am I really earning these on my own merit? these positions on my own merit, or is it because of my connection to the president? And he's very aware that other people think that this is how he's getting this. So that I can at least sort of excuse away, but I'm like, Julia, babe, like, why could you not crack a joke?
Yeah.
Like, loosen the spine, like, do something.
Liev Schreiber and Julia Stiles, they did their best.
They did. I don't want to sound harsh on them,
because I
feel
like both.
Everybody did their best.
Yeah.
In that one, and in the First Omen too. Mm-hmm. I do feel like they did their best. I just didn't necessarily. It didn't pass muster for me personally, who has no bearing on any of this at all.
One thing I will give the First Omen that I quite enjoyed was the editor, Bob Murawski. He was Sam Raimi's editor for many, many years, starting since Army of Darkness. And I like to mention that just because he's a really cool dude, and he runs a company called Grindhouse Releasing, and he does like special edition Blu-rays, and he is the main reason we have a complete uncut edition of Cannibal Holocaust, fully restored.
Well, which is another one of my favorite movies.
I know it is.
Yeah.
But what I will say, the two people in the Omen 2006 film, they came in, I just feel like they truly understood the assignment, and that's, once again, Mia Farrow, just coming in like a fucking whirlwind and just giving one hell of a performance after not having acted since 1992. She did Husbands and Wives with Woody Allen, pretty much soft retired until 2006, and she came back with The Omen and Be Kind Rewind. So, fucking love that. And then Michael Gambon as Bugenhagen is just giving chaos energy in this movie.
Yeah, I liked his Bugenhagen. I really did. And I liked the photographer.
Yes, David Thewlis, I think is... No,
Thewlis? I know.
The werewolf from Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's close enough. Dave. We'll just call him Dave.
Dave.
I liked him.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he had a photographer who hasn't slept in a very long time kind of vibes.
Yeah. Seems like he's popping pills in the bathroom and...
Yeah, I appreciated that take. So yeah, I think that you nailed it. They did such a good job in those roles, and really made it worth watching for me. Because otherwise, I just didn't see the point in this one. I understand, like, it was 2006. It was 30 years.
Feels like 2006.
It does. We said that when we were watching it. It was like, after we had both watched it before this, it feels more dated in the 2006 version than the 1976 version.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ask me to articulate like why.
I kind of can. This trend started in the late 90s, but took off really heavily in the 2000s, because this is going to get a little nerdy. But around this time is when digital intermediate started coming around for filmmaking. So even when they were shooting on film, they had digital workflows when it came to post-production. So instead of having a machine that actually ran the film through and cutting it with a razor blade and tape it back together, or using cement to glue it back together, they could do things digitally, and it helped with workflows. But because they can do things digitally, they started getting into the world of being able to digitally color time movies. Meaning, for those of you out there who are not familiar with this term, they could shoot something, that they could alter the look of it in post-production. It's kind of like using Photoshop on a moving image. So this movie has a very strong, contrasty look to it, because nothing was stopping them from just like, oh, we can control the look of this image, and let's really sap out a lot of the colors and really bring up the reds, and it just has a very of its time color palette.
MySpace profile picture edits.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't hold up very well.
And I get it.
Like it doesn't. It becomes more of a product of its time than the 76.
Yes, because the 76 has a timeless look to it. And like, don't get me wrong, movies are still digitally colored, but I feel like now they're like, okay, we don't have to go so heavy with this. I get it. When it first came around, they're like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want to the image, and it's easy to kind of. It's like a businessman in the 80s discovering blow. You just go crazy with it when you first discover it, and then you learn you have to
no moderation.
You have to take that back a little bit. So it has that look to it. There's no subtlety to it, and they're like, oh, it's a raining scene. We need to make sure it's really gray and contrasty and dark, and we need people to feel like it's supposed to be a scary scene. And then it's, the jump scares were very of its time. It scares you the way that it does when TV goes to commercial, and you're like, it's
it
gets loud.
Because that was something like the original didn't rely on jump scares.
No, it was a lot of dread.
Yeah, and I love a good dread.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Stephen King has a great quote about that, about describing the difference between horror and dread. And I think it might be horror, dread, and something else. But gross out. Like, gross out is like, oh, ew, I can't help but look at it. Horror.
I love gross out.
Yeah, horror is when something kind of just jumps out and scares you, and it gets your blood pumping. But then dread is something that's just kind of creeping over time and just
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with a jump scare.
Oh,
I love
absolutely.
a good jump scare. But part of the problem with that for me is like, and I think you and I have talked about this before, we've watched so much horror that we can anticipate the jump scares.
Mm-hmm. And the ones we can't anticipate because they're cheap.
Yeah. And I'm like, so it's hard to get me with a good jump scare.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not a filmmaker, but can see the tricks, and I try so hard not to.
Mm-hmm.
But I see them lining it up. That's what I watch with my husband, who did not start watching horror until we were dating, and he's still not as well versed as he should be. And so he gets gotten good. But I also scare him. But
I do love watching movies with people who still can get a jolt, because like, even though like for me, I can see a jump scare, I'm like, oh, that's objectively a good jump scare. They did good with that, but it doesn't get me. So sometimes we'll watch things with Amanda because she likes the
Mm-hmm.
jump scare movies, like say like The Conjuring or something, because they can still get a rise out of her. So I love watching a movie with someone, or even with an audience, when the jump scares still get them. I'm like, good for you guys, good for the filmmakers. It feels like a win for everyone.
Because I like jump scares when I can see them in theater, because when I go into a movie theater, then I don't have to, I have an easier time turning off my brain, my like movie buff brain,
mm-hmm.
where I can have an easier time not looking for those shots, those setups. And because you're with a crowd and you're in the dark and there's a little bit of like some sensory deprivation going on, they get me a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I can at least appreciate, even if they don't get me, someone in that theater is going to scream.
Mm-hmm.
And it adds to it. Because I'm really good at like suspending my belief. For a movie, I still enjoy a lot of horror simply because I can be like, that's fine, turn off my brain and I can
mm-hmm.
watch it.
and I can suspend my belief really well. But some things, but that makes it more abrupt when I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about that with The Omen 2, which I don't think you've watched yet.
Not yet.
You should.
I
like
plan
it.
to. I have the entire box set. I plan to get to all of them.
Yeah. It's not a lot of plot, but it's a lot of vibes and kills.
My type of thing.
Yeah, it comes across almost like a slasher, if you can look at it that way.
Cool.
Yeah, but that it has a very abrupt moment for me of not being able to buy this. And it's simply just because they chose not. Their set choices were questionable.
No, and I in a lot of ways I'm the same way. Like I just love watching movies. So like sometimes, I am able to be critical on them. It's like, oh, I enjoyed watching this, but if I really had to like sit down, pick it apart, I could talk about things that didn't work on a narrative side or what have you. But it's very rare that I'm like, that was a waste of my time. So when I am watching something that's just like, I'm not going to lie, near the end of the Omen remake, I was at a certain point stopped paying attention I want to watch the movie again when I have not just recently watched the original, because I was obviously comparing the two, so maybe with some time not watching them practically back to back.
You need some distance between the two because they're too similar.
Yes. So maybe I'll feel a little differently about it then, but at a certain point I'm like, I've seen this before.
Yeah, which is a little disappointing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I would be remiss if we didn't, just us being total gorehounds when it comes to horror films, if we did not talk about the kills of the Omen. Because I knew about a lot of these kills beforehand, and it always shocks me that some of these are in this movie because they seem so much more intense and gruesome than a movie of this type would normally have.
Yeah. What's your favorite?
Man, that beheading is pretty fucking spectacular.
That's mine too. But
that opening hanging when she also goes through the window is also pretty fucking great. But that beheading.
I know, because you everybody knows about the hanging.
Yeah.
And it's it appears in the original, the remake, and the First Omen. They all feature that image. Although the First Omen adds fire.
Yeah,
she what did you call it?
Oh, and she even hits that line, "It's all for you."
Yes. Yeah, that line and things you can see. It's one of those things that you can see coming. Not in the original.
Yeah. I knew there was a hanging, but I didn't know the context, the character, what have you, because I've just seen the clips of the act itself.
Well, my husband was surprised that it happened so early in the movie. That's the first kill.
Yeah.
And it's the most iconic in the franchise. When I really think like the beheading of the photographer and
oh hell, even the First Omen when they had the chunk of the guy's head get taken out like it's a fucking birthday cake.
I love that. That's my favorite scene in the whole of the First Omen. I think I could watch just that opening scene. Because the sense of dread in that scene is like it's perfect, because you know something's going to happen with that stained glass.
Oh yeah.
And you don't know what, but you've watched, presumably you've watched it, so you know about. I love the priest being impaled. I always love that one. They're all good kills. It's hard to pick a favorite, but the beheading. But the priest on a pole is brilliant. But yeah, so it's like I love that that's kind of brought into you've got the stained glass, and you still have a priest on a pole.
Yeah.
In that opening scene, and it's so full of dread. I love it, and that he walks and talks, so you don't you know something happened, but it's like, what happened? It's a great, and I just love everything.
And then
about
like
that.
they delay it for so long, and he's like, "Are you okay?"
Yes.
And he's like, "Yes." And then he turns around.
Then you start to doubt yourself.
Yeah.
You doubt your own. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh, I can see where this is going." Because again, like I'm familiar with the franchise.
And then the priest who
with...
just does the sign of the cross and the like when the
yes,
it's like it's subtle because he's also out of focus.
Yeah, and you figure he just had this conversation. Like, there's a lot of reasons why he could be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But something had to have happened. But then the first time we watched it, we didn't watch it in theaters. So we were watching it at home. So I made my husband pause it. I was like, that caught me off guard because when he started to walk away, I was like, oh, then I guess something.
Yeah, I thought they were subverting our expectations, and they still did.
Yes, that was the best part of that whole movie for me because I was like, and then I went into it, and so I ended up slightly disappointed with the rest of it simply because they got me so good with that first bit when I was doubting myself, and we've mentioned this is a franchise based on faith and trust in yourself and in others, and I was like, man, I thought I was wrong.
Nope. No. So, like I said, we had to talk about those because they're just so iconic. And the first time I saw that beheading in the original Omen was talking about probably Bravo. That channel Bravo used to have like this, 100 greatest horror moments, and they probably showed it on there. And I remember thinking, it's like, wait, this scene is in the Omen? How does this even happen? What, like, because like it's kind of like a haunted house movie in the way that, like, you don't expect gnarly kills out of something like that. So like a movie about the Antichrist, you don't expect a beheading of that level. So,
and that's, you should really, so when you go into like the Omen 2, they had fun with those kills. I don't think you're gonna see, you might see them coming, but with what? You would never guess from, again, it's a sequel about the Antichrist, and with no plot. The plot is literally just how many people can we kill off around this kid before the uncle notices. And it takes a while. It takes a very long time.
Awesome.
But yeah, they had fun with those.
Cool. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. So we're going to wrap up. And on this show, we do something called the Thrill House moment, which is, it's a little hard for you because you absolutely love this movie and you've been watching it for a long time. But the concept behind the Thrill House moment is kind of like your lock-in point, the point that, whether you can remember when you first saw it, that you're like, yes, I'm into this movie, or it could be a favorite scene, just something you want to highlight. And if you need a moment, I could go and do my own.
So when because disclosure, you told me to prepare for this moment. So I'm not technically on the spot. But I initially was thinking of the cemetery scene.
Yeah. Because
it's my favorite scene. But then, as going back over it, the scene for me when he and the photographer go into Father Brennan's apartment.
Yes.
And it's full of the crucifixes and newspaper clippings. That is when, like, it moves it to another level for me. And I love the imagery and the insanity that's displayed there. And I don't like how they did it in the remake.
It feels like in the remake they just watched David Fincher's Seven and like, let's do that.
Yeah, and it didn't have the same. They also relied more on like digital cameras and like digital like stuff for that one, which again kind of made it feel more like less timeless.
Yeah.
But and so that was because that was such a lock-in moment for me. That was such like in the first one, and it's one of my favorite ones that I look forward to seeing every time I rewatch it. I'm like, ooh, like we're about to go to the apartment, and so that's it for me.
So I kind of have two, because I do have my lock, like the moment where I was like, fuck yes, I'm in for a ride. And that's obviously the hanging sequence. Just because at that point you're like, whatever this movie wants to give me, I am fucking in. But I would say like one of the scenes that I just thought was really eerie, really creepy, and worked very well was when Gregory Peck comes in to check in on Damien, and the dog is hidden within the shadows by his toys, and you can you don't even really see him, but you can hear the growling. Like that, especially because he thought the dog was gone, and he also should have made a way bigger deal out of her bringing a dog into their house that she claims she found outside. She should have been fired right from that point. Just
oh my god, she should have never been hired.
No.
There were so many points when she should have been fired.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that was probably one of my favorite moments, because I was just thinking about from myself how eerie that would probably be.
Well, especially when you're going in, because he doesn't think the dog is there anymore.
Yes.
And to hear the growling when you go in and you suspect your son of being the antichrist, I would almost be relieved to see the dog by that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So I loved that little sequence. Last thing I want to, it's not really a Thrill House moment. I'm just really amused by it.
Before you move on, just because like you highlighted the hanging scene, and we were just talking about how that happened so much earlier in the movie than I think people who haven't seen it but have seen the hanging suspect. It's like at that point, like that's a lock-in moment for sure for a lot of people, because then like what the hell's next?
Yeah,
because I thought that was like the climax.
Because like in any other movie, it could have been.
Yeah, so you're like, oh shit, this is just the beginning.
Yeah. And then it just gets kind of crazier from there, and it's got some phenomenal performances. Like I said, the only thing I wanted to highlight, and this is from the 2006 remake, was when they redo the scene of the wife falling off of the balcony, which I love that they had to add a whole extra floor. But I absolutely love that it happened with the Razor scooter. I
know. Again, it's so 2006.
It was like big wheels are out. Razor scooters are in. I said to Amanda, I just want to see him do like a little kickflip with it.
Right. Like it's so much smaller than a tricycle.
I know.
But like he really had to be aiming for her, and he was obviously, but it's like.
But it's more obvious that he's aiming for her.
Yes. And because there's like, again, it's that buildup of dread that when you watch the original and he's there with the tricycle, I love the cinematography of that shot, of that scene. Because again, you know something's going to happen because creepy things happen on tricycles. It's
a rule.
Such a symbol of childhood and innocence. But yeah, it's like, so when the same thing when I watched it the first time with the scooter, and I'm like, the scooter, I was dying.
Oh, it was.
I mean, that is a sharp veer towards her.
Yes,
with the scooter.
Yeah,
like,
you can't be like, oh, I bumped, like the big wheel bumped into you. Anyone who's ridden a Razor scooter, you've got precise turning capabilities.
Precision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also made me really miss my Razor scooter. Probably my favorite.
I know.
Birthday
Every time I watch
ever.
it, and because I rewatched it before, to prepare for the, and I was like, oh my god, like I miss my Razor scooter. Like I miss scooters. Like they used to be all over the place.
That was a very specific time period, and I feel like we used to be a proper country when every kid in America had a scooter.
Right?
So, let's pour one out for the Razor scooters.
Yeah.
All right. So, any closing thoughts on The Omen before I let you go?
No, don't ask me for more thoughts, because I could go for another 3 hours.
I know. We definitely both can. But I think this has been a great episode, and I really appreciate you coming on and just nerding out about The Omen and horror and faith and everything in between.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You're very welcome. And I don't know if you have anything to promote for yourself. Is there anything you want to talk about with the library?
I mean, if I can take a moment to just remind people that, you know, our libraries are under attack at the moment. They're losing funding. They are subject to book challenges, and I'm sure, I would hope that people would be aware of that. So I just want to remind people to support your local library, and that's getting a library card and also spending time in the building and exploring what they can do for you. There's from study rooms to some places have Wi-Fi hotspots. Checking out a movie from there helps support numbers and justify our funding and our existence. So you would be shocked at what you can find in your local library and what they are willing to do for you, your local librarians. So that would just be, if I've got the few minutes, then that's what I would like to please ask people to do. Is
Absolutely.
Not just support, but use your local library.
Yes, and I'm a big proponent of using the library. I'm not as much of a reader as you are. We've talked about that. I do like to read. It's just I'm much more of a movie person, always have been. But as you said, you can go to the library, you can get movies if you want to see The Omen, and you know, don't rely on streaming. Go to your local library, and get it from the library. And here's what I do: I try to check out something every week, even if I don't intend to watch it. I don't always have time. But I check
we
out...
don't care. There's no grade at the end when you turn it in. We don't care if you watched it or read it or not.
Heck, and if you're using something like Canopy or Hoopla, that does count for checkouts for the library. So make sure you're linking link it to your local library and just check things out. And like you said, like, you can go there, you can make copies, you can make faxes. So if you want to make a bunch of if you want to make a bunch of copies of a poster for an upcoming comedy show and you don't have the money for it, go to your local library and they'll take care of it for you.
And a lot of, like, my library where I work, our copier is free. So you can print off one copy and you can make as many copies as you want. We have no limit. Explore what yours is. And like I said, even just walking into the building helps that we keep track of the number of people who come in, and that helps to justify our funding. So even just a simple act of walking into the library is a way to support your local library.
Perfect. I think that's I think that's a great way to end this. At this point, everyone should know where to find me. I'm Shameless Picture Show, or Michael_Vyers, on pretty much every form of social media. You can find me at Letterboxd at Vyers10 2008 if you care about reading my dumb little reviews. And by the point that this comes out, the Milwaukee Film Festival will probably be in full swing. So if you're in the Milwaukee area, make sure you're supporting that. And we appreciate everyone listening. This is 9 years of doing this show. That's insane to me. And you can check us out next time. Shame Time, Shame Place, Shameless Picture Show.
The Shameless Picture Show is a proud member of the Cinepunch Podcast Network. The show is recorded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and is hosted and produced by Michael Vyers. The show is created by Michael Vyers and Nick Richards. The Shameless Picture Show is edited by Austin Proctor of the Frightmares podcast. Amanda Vyers is the show's graphic designer and a big help behind the scenes. Our theme music was composed by Austin Proctor with narration by Nick Richards. The end credit music you're currently enjoying was generously provided to us by the band 10 Speed. And an extra special thank you to all our Patreon supporters and to our generous sponsors. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and directly at Cinepunch.com.